Kris from City Winery, and I'll be talking you through the 3 wine and cheese pairings that you have in your hot little hands right now. But before I get started with the wine and cheese combos, let me tell you a little bit about us. We are a working micro winery, function and event space and restaurant right here in the city of Brisbane. We source our grapes from all over Australia, working with our growers to make superb Gurla wines. The name of our wine brand, Gurla, was born from our desire to give a nod to the bloke that is significant to Brisbane's winemaking history, Karl Friedrich Gurla. He was a German who was passionate about his wine. He grew a lot of his own grapes, but also jumped on his horse and cart to source grapes from higher altitude regions like Esk, Warwick and Toowoomba. He then brought the grapes back to Brisbane to make his wine, for medicinal purposes apparently. At City Winery, we love to acknowledge the people and the places that make our food and wine so delicious. So welcome to the cheese and wine experience. I hope you enjoy the combos as much as I do. First up, I'll walk you through my method of tasting food and wine. Firstly, I like to swirl the wine glass. You see winemakers do this all the time, or wine nuts. That will allow the aromatics, which are chemical compounds, to become airborne, leaving the surface of the wine and making their way up into your snoz and into the olfactory system. If you can't smell it, just hold it in your hands and give it a swirl, warming it up a few degrees. It makes a huge difference. I then take a fairly large sip, enough to coat the whole of the inside of the mouth, the cheeks, the tongue, the back of the tongue, everywhere. I then have a think about where in the mouth I am perceiving the sensations and flavours that the wine is creating. Is it in the middle of the tongue, or is it on the sides of the cheeks? Is it dominant in one place or lacking in another part of the mouth? Then we have a little bit of cheese. Then go back to the same wine. Have another large sip to coat the whole of the mouth. Take note of where the wine is dominating or lacking. Is there a difference between the first and the second sip? Even sensational wines and delicious cheese may not add up to a great experience when consumed together. If one dominates and so diminishes the flavour of the other, or worse, the flavours fight in your mouth like 2 guests arguing at a dinner party, competing with one another rather than finding harmony, then the result can be less than perfect. If the wine has been overpowered by the cheese or made the wine taste thin, bitter or overly acidic, it's probably not the best match. You often encounter cheeses from the supermarket that are too salty or too acidic. This can have a huge impact on the wine you are drinking. Having a big impact on the wine is fine as long as it's a positive impact and both the cheese and the wine are fully appreciated. The first combo involves the Gurla Vermentino. Vermentino is an Italian variety and is quickly finding its groove in Australia. It's perfect for a refreshing summer drink. I love this wine paired with the cheddar. Cheddars are inherently higher in acid than other cheeses. That's why people describe cheddars as bitey sometimes. What they actually mean is it has nice acid or a lot of acid. The Vermentino also has fairly high acid. When you first taste the Vermentino, you will notice a limey, salivating effect. This is a sign that your taste buds are reacting to the acid in the wine. Vermentinos have a unique sense of sea spray, and this one does too. It'd be great with natural oysters and a squeeze of lime, but today it's cheddar. So we taste the cheddar and notice the acidic but also the high fat richness. Then taking another sip of the Vermentino, you will notice that the wine tastes a bit less acidic than the first sip, that it nicely cleanses the palate, ready for another morsel of cheese. Next up, we have the Gurla Rosé. This is 40% Grenache, 30% Merlot and 30% Sangiovese. Sangiovese has an orange hue to its skin and hence the wine has a lovely salmon colour. This wine is dry, meaning that it has no residual sugar remaining after the fermentation. In a recent review, Steve Lazinski from Q Wine said this about the rosé. Rhubarb, watermelon husk and dried currants consume the mouth. Soft creamy feels and a lick of freeze-dried strawberry also raises its hand. Drying and made for food, soft sheets of tannin call for another sip. A good get. I couldn't say it better myself. This is a real winner of a wine, and I think it goes with almost any cheese you can throw at it. It has this beautiful strawberries and cream aroma coming from the Grenache and has a refreshing cranberry finish on the palate that is distinctly a Sangiovese trait. When you taste this wine, you will notice it has a really plump, weighty feeling on the middle of the tongue, which might trick you into thinking that it is sweet. It's not sweet from sugar sweetness, as this wine is dry. It's the fruit flavour that's coming from quality grapes that gives you that sensation. Because of the sweet fruit on the mid-palate, I think it can stand up to a cheese like a pungent, washed rind cheese. Generally, you'll need a wine with heaps of fruit sweetness or actual sugar sweetness to hold up next to a pungent cheese. The Girl Shiraz is a great example of Shiraz from Barossa Valley fruit. It has plenty of fruit richness, tannins and oak. You would think that a robust wine like Shiraz would go with any cheese. It's just not the case. It really depends on the acid and tannin structure of the wine. This wine has lots of tannin and they are powdery and not too drying. They can be felt on the insides of the cheeks and the tongue. These tannins are a great cleanser for the palate when you're eating something creamy or a creamy rich brie. The tannins kind of strip through the fattiness of the cheese. This is why traditionally we drink red wines with fatty red meats. It's a palate cleanser. This brie isn't salty or acidic like the other cheeses. If the cheese was overly salty, it would enhance the tannins and astringency of those tannins and make the wine taste hard, which is something we want to avoid. I tend not to eat salty olives with reds for this exact reason. And if you want to see how food can destroy the enjoyment of a wine, try the Shiraz with some salt and vinegar chips. This cheese has a plump, fat mid-palate. The cheese could get a bit cloying without the wine even. The combination is almost like a fruity, creamy dessert. Delicious. I hope you've learnt something today. If you enjoyed your cheese and wine pairing, we'd really appreciate it if you shared your experience. Thanks for supporting City Winery and our growers.